The day they read the will felt like a final gut punch after years of being the family's invisible leftover. My sister stood there preening, one manicured hand resting on the brand new keys to her city apartment, a shiny modern place with marble floors, right in the heart of downtown.
Me?
They handed me a single yellowed envelope with directions to a half-rotted house out in the village. It was your grandfather's wish, the lawyer mumbled, like that made it better. My husband didn't even wait to hide his disgust. A rotting shack in the middle of nowhere? You really are pathetic. He left the next day, moving straight into my sister's fancy new apartment. No hesitation, no apology. Like he'd been waiting for an excuse. My name is Amelia. And from wherever you're watching this, stay with me. Because I was so numb, I barely remembered packing a single bag. No money, no plan, just a deep, raw humiliation that hollowed me out. The village was hours away, a place so tiny it barely showed up on Google Maps. The driver dumped me at the end of a dirt lane and left, tires kicking up dust that settled on my already tattered suitcase. There it was. My inheritance. A sagging roof. Paint peeling off in gray flakes. Windows so warped they looked like they might fall out if you slammed a door too hard. I wanted to scream. Instead, I forced my feet forward, opened the rusted gate, and stepped inside. The smell hit me first, damp wood and old mold, sharp enough to sting my eyes. But then, something stopped me cold. Because past the collapsing hallway, through a broken door at the back, I could see a faint shimmer of sunlight hitting something that looked completely out of place. Metal.
Shiny. New.
I stepped closer, heart pounding, afraid to even hope. And as I moved through the gloom, I realized this house wasn't just rotten. It was hiding something. Something that might change everything. My hands were shaking so badly, I almost tripped over a broken floorboard as I stepped deeper into the house. That gleam of metal, catching a ray of late afternoon sun through the cracked window, felt like a hallucination at first. I crouched down, heart thundering in my chest, and brushed aside a soggy scrap of rotted carpet. There, bolted into the floorboards, was a steel trapdoor. I ran my fingers along the edges, eyes wide. The metal was heavy, cold, and definitely newer than anything else in this decaying shell of a house. Why would my grandfather hide a reinforced trapdoor in the middle of nowhere? I swallowed hard, palms sweaty, and searched for a latch. My nails caught on a tiny keyhole. I glanced around, but of course, there was no key to be seen. Only the echo of my sister's delighted laughter from that day, replaying in my head like poison. She got the marble floors. I got this. But somehow, I felt a flicker of hope. I stood, moving through the house, ignoring the spider webs and the mildew, rifling through every old drawer, every dusty shelf. Finally, in a chipped ceramic sugar jar, tucked behind stale tea bags, I found it, a small brass key, scuffed from decades of use. My hands trembled as I carried it back to the trapdoor. It clicked perfectly into place. I took a breath, bracing myself for rats, or worse. Then I pulled. The trapdoor opened on surprisingly well-oiled hinges, revealing a staircase that descended into the dark, cut from solid stone. A cold breeze wafted up, carrying the faintest scent of earth and something metallic. I grabbed my phone, switched on the flashlight, and forced my legs to carry me down. Each step echoed like a drumbeat in my skull, the silence so complete it made my ears ring. At the bottom, I nearly dropped the phone. Metal filing cabinets. Dozens of them, all arranged in perfect rows, labeled with my grandfather's neat, old-fashioned handwriting. And in the middle, a steel safe so enormous it looked like it belonged in a bank vault. I stepped closer, knees weak. What the hell had Grandpa been hiding? And why leave it for me? My phone buzzed in my pocket, jolting me out of my shock, a text from my husband. Don't come crawling back. You'll never be more than a loser. I almost laughed, a wild, shaky sound in the dark, because something told me the only loser here was about to be him. I stood there in the silent, cold cellar, the steel safe staring me down like some ancient secret waiting to be unwrapped. My mind was racing, trying to piece it together. Grandpa had always been quiet, a man who kept to himself and never showed off. We all thought he was barely getting by. The entire family pitied him. Even I believed those stories. But now, seeing a vault so massive it probably weighed more than the rotting house above, I wondered if we'd all been fools. The safe had a dial lock, thick with dust, numbers etched deep. I wiped it clean with my sleeve, fighting back tears, breathing hard. Was there a code? A clue? I dug back through my memories, every awkward family dinner, every awkward, stumbling story Grandpa used to tell. You always have to look deeper, Amelia. His voice echoed in my head. I knelt down, scanning the labels on the metal filing cabinets. Land grants, 1948. Mineral rights, 1961.
Deeds.
Titles. What was this? Every single file drawer felt heavier than gold itself. My pulse kicked up a notch. Land rights? Mineral rights? I opened one drawer and gasped. Stacks of neatly filed certificates, stamped and notarized, listing land plots that stretched for miles around this village. Oil lease contracts. Agreements with huge companies I'd only heard about on TV. It didn't make sense. Grandpa was supposed to be poor. Was this why he left the house to me? Like a final puzzle only I could solve. I turned back to the safe, heart pounding so hard it hurt. Maybe the combination was something personal. I closed my eyes, trying to remember his birthday, that date etched on the family calendar every year because nobody else remembered to celebrate it. I dialed it in, numbers scraping under my fingers.
Click.
The safe hissed slightly as it unlocked, and I had to brace myself against the stone wall to keep from collapsing. Inside, stacked nearly to the top, were rows of cash bundles. $100 bills. Stacks of them. And on top, an envelope with my name written in Grandpa's shaky, perfect script. My vision blurred as I tore it open. They will never value you, Amelia. But this will buy your freedom. Use it well. I sank to my knees on the stone floor, clutching the letter, tears spilling hot and silent. My sister could keep the city apartment. My cheating husband could rot there with her. Because I had just inherited my own empire. I stayed down there for what felt like hours, just letting the truth sink in. Stacks of cash. Filing cabinets packed with deeds and land rights worth more than I could even calculate. A letter in my grandfather's fragile handwriting telling me to take my freedom and run. It was like waking up from a nightmare and realizing you'd been sleeping on gold the entire time. I climbed back up the stone steps, letter clutched so tightly my knuckles went white. When I stepped back into the creaking, rotten house, I saw it differently. It wasn't a prison. It was a fortress. My fortress. A grin crept onto my face, sharp and almost feral. They had all called me the loser. The one who got left behind. The one they could mock while they toasted champagne in a glass-walled city apartment. But they didn't even know I was about to rewrite every part of my story. My phone buzzed again, my husband. You'll never make it on your own, Amelia. Be smart. Come apologize. I nearly threw the phone across the room, but then a better idea bloomed in my mind. I texted back. No thanks. Enjoy the view. He tried calling immediately, but I silenced it, my pulse steady for the first time in days. I had a plan to make. I spent the next day combing through the filing cabinets, listing out every piece of property, every lease, every mineral claim. Grandpa had done everything legally and thoroughly. There were even neatly bound folders showing all the royalties pouring in from oil companies. Generational wealth, hidden behind a collapsing roof, so no one else would sniff it out. Smart. Brilliant, actually. I made a list of contractors. A list of local agents. A list of trustworthy people because I wasn't going to let anyone steal this from me, not again. By evening, I was exhausted but burning with something electric. Purpose. When the sun set, I stood on the crooked porch, looking across the fields, imagining what this place could become. A restored villa. My headquarters. My rebirth. I wouldn't just survive. I would thrive. And the best part? I wouldn't owe any of them a single cent. Let them have their marble floors and empty, poisoned hearts. This place, these keys, this wealth, this future was mine. I could already feel Grandpa's pride, warm and solid around me. The next morning, I woke up in the tiny back bedroom of the village house, sunlight streaming through the cracked shutters, and for the first time in weeks, I felt calm. Not comfortable. The mattress was lumpy. The roof still smelled of mold. The floor creaked with every shift, but calm. Because I had a purpose. I got up and splashed my face with ice-cold water from the rusty tap, then took Grandpa's letter and tucked it into my shirt pocket like a shield. I would protect this. I would protect me. I made a list of everything the house needed. A new roof, plumbing repairs, a deep scrub to kill the mold, proper locks. No more living in fear. By mid-morning, I was already on the phone with a contractor from the next town over, explaining that I wanted everything reinforced. "It's just a village shack," he said, half laughing. "Are you sure?" I smiled, my voice steady.
Yes.
"Reinforce it top to bottom. Spare no expense. Let them wonder. Let them gossip. No one would guess there were millions buried under this floor." While I worked, messages kept rolling in. My husband, or I should say, ex-husband, tried calling from a new number. I let it ring. My sister tried to reach me too. "Hey, maybe I overreacted. We could talk. I'm sure you're struggling with that village house." I nearly laughed out loud, the sound harsh in the stale air. She had no idea what she'd lost. I texted back only 2 words. "Don't bother." The contractors arrived later that afternoon, their trucks rumbling through the dusty lane. I watched them unload materials and wheelbarrows, measuring, calculating, setting up scaffolding, all under my quiet, sharp-eyed supervision. This was my empire now, and I wasn't going to let it rot, inside or out. At night, I sat by candlelight with the old papers, flipping through more deeds, more contracts. Grandpa had even left me detailed instructions on how to claim royalties and reinvest the land leases. My head spun at the numbers. While my sister was busy showing off a rented city view and a cheating husband, I was holding enough generational power to rewrite my entire bloodline's history. And I would. Not for them.
For me.
Because Grandpa was right.
They never valued me.
But he had. I was going to honor that. Over the next week, the village house transformed piece by piece. The workers stripped the moldy walls and replaced them with fresh plaster. New plumbing snaked through the floors, shining and leak-free. The roof went from a patchwork of rotten shingles to strong, gleaming tiles that could withstand any storm. Every night, I slept a little easier. Every morning, I felt stronger. And while the workers hammered and painted, I kept diving into Grandpa's files, hunting down every contact, every lease, every mineral royalty he'd tucked away for me. One day, I found a small, faded receipt wedged between land deeds, a security box key from a city bank, dated nearly 20 years ago. My hands shook as I read it. If Grandpa had trusted me with the house, with the safe, with the paperwork, what on earth had he hidden in a city bank vault? My curiosity burned. But I wasn't ready to leave the house yet. Not until it was fully secured. Meanwhile, my sister kept trying to worm her way back into my phone. "Let's be adults about this. I'm worried about you alone in that dump. At least give me the furniture. You don't need it." The nerve. They'd left me to rot, and now that they sensed I might stand on my own, they wanted to scavenge what was left. No more. I sent her a single reply. "Stay away." And then I blocked her. It felt incredible. That night, sitting on my new sturdy porch under a perfect blanket of stars, I let myself dream for the first time. This land could be restored. It could become something alive. A place to build a business. Maybe even a place to help women like me who'd been left for dead by their own families. The possibilities made my pulse race. I could almost hear Grandpa's voice again, quiet but proud. "They'll never value you, Amelia, but you will." And I did. Finally. So while my sister polished her apartment floors and paraded my ex-husband around like a prize, I was laying the first bricks of my own legacy. One they could never steal. One they'd never even see coming. By the end of the second week, the transformation was nearly complete. The contractors stepped back, admiring their own work. Fresh walls gleaming with new paint, sturdy locks on every door and window, a reinforced foundation that would stand for generations. It no longer smelled of rot. It smelled like possibility. I paid them in cash from one of Grandpa's neatly stacked envelopes, watching their eyes widen just slightly before they politely thanked me. No banks. No one snooping in my business. Mine. All mine. That night, I finally felt ready to see what the city safety box held. I took the old receipt, packed a simple bag, locked every reinforced door behind me, and headed into the city, a place I hadn't set foot in since the reading of the will. Stepping off the bus, I felt a cold thrill of purpose. I wasn't the woman who'd been laughed out of the lawyer's office anymore. When I walked into the bank, the manager gave me a suspicious look until I showed him the key. He typed in the box number, checked my ID, and then nodded, eyes flicking up in surprise. Right this way, ma'am. The vault was silent, chilly, and smelled of steel. The manager turned the lock, swung open the box, and stepped politely aside. Inside was a single folder, thick, worn, tied up with string and a leather pouch. My fingers trembled as I opened it. Inside the folder were share certificates. Stocks in oil companies, mining conglomerates, construction giants. Enough blue-chip holdings to make even a billionaire raise an eyebrow. The pouch jingled, heavy. I unwrapped it carefully and nearly dropped it. Gold coins, bright and perfect, stamped with dates older than my father's lifetime. I couldn't breathe. Grandpa, what did you build? It felt like a second heartbeat thrumming in my hands. For a long moment, I stood there in that cold, steel-scented room, letting the truth settle into my bones. I wasn't just surviving anymore. I was unstoppable. I walked out of that bank taller than I'd ever stood, every part of me blazing with power they'd all tried to snuff out. And when I stepped into the bright city sunlight, I couldn't stop smiling. My sister could have her apartment. My ex-husband could have her. Let them rot together in their tiny world. Because I was about to change mine, and no one could do a damn thing about it. I left the bank that day with the leather pouch tucked safely into my bag and the share certificates filed neatly in a folder against my heart. Stepping outside felt like stepping into a new skin, a stronger one, stitched together with every scrap of pain, every insult, every betrayal that had once broken me. I wasn't broken now. I was reborn. On the bus ride back to the village, I watched the city fade into sprawling green fields, and I realized for the first time I didn't envy my sister's apartment or her marble floors. She could keep her walls, her stolen husband, her illusion of a glamorous life. I had land. I had resources. I had power so deep and so hidden they wouldn't even see it coming if it rose up to swallow them. And I was going to do something with it. A women's cooperative, maybe. I'd met enough women who'd been left with nothing to know how badly they needed a hand up. A farming initiative, revitalizing Grandpa's land. Sustainable, powerful, generational. The ideas bloomed like wildflowers in my mind. When I stepped off the bus, dusty road under my feet again, the village house no longer looked like an exile. It looked like a throne. My phone buzzed one last time, a final, desperate text from my sister. Are you really going to stay in that dump forever? I read it, smiling. Yes, I typed back. This dump is worth more than your whole world. And then I blocked her, once and for all. As I stood on the strong, newly built porch, breathing in the scent of fresh wood and open fields, I heard Grandpa's voice in my memory, warm and proud. They'll never value you, Amelia. But you will. And I did. Oh, I did. I'd built a fortress on their ashes. I'd turned their scorn into a war cry. And I would rise, not quietly, not politely, but boldly on my own terms, with my name carved into stone. No one would ever